Maul's tale of survival begins not just with his escape from death, but with his transformation. After being severed by Kenobi, his hatred became his lifeline, pulling him from the brink of oblivion.
Hatred is the way of the Sith, but Maul was weak. He allowed his thirst for vengeance to blind him.
But that's where you're wrong, Malgrath. His hatred gave him strength. He built a criminal empire, conquered Mandalore, all to spite his old master.
And yet, he failed. Sidious crushed him.
True. But consider what Maul represents. The tenacity of the dark side, the power of will. He embodies our most sacred teachings.
Perhaps, but I see a cautionary tale. Maul's ambition outweighed his wisdom. A true Sith knows when to strike.
And when to wait in the shadows. Yes, I suppose you have a point. Still, one can't help but admire his persistence.
Admiration is not the way of the Sith. Power is all that matters.
And yet here we are, discussing a fallen apprentice. Perhaps we're more sentimental than we care to admit.
Speak for yourself, Sarek. I seek only to learn from his mistakes.
As do I, Lord Malgrath. As do I. Shall we continue our discussion?
Let us proceed then. Enlighten me with your vision of his rise from the ashes.
Darth Maul's transformation begins in the depths of Naboo, where the bisected body of Maul plummeted through the reactor shaft. Betrayed by his overconfidence and bested by a mere Padawan. But young Kenobi underestimated the power of hatred and the will to survive that burns within a true Sith. As Maul fell, his mind aflame with agony and rage, he instinctively reached out with the Force, grabbing an air vent. Destined for disposal on a junkyard world. There, in the bowels of a forsaken planet, Maul clung to life, his hatred for Kenobi fueling his every breath. For years, Maul existed as little more than a feral creature, scuttling through the dirt and grime on a bizarre six-limbed apparatus that replaced his severed legs. He formed an alliance with a cunning serpent named Orlais. Once a feared Sith assassin, now reduced to bargaining with vermin for survival. But even in his madness, Maul's obsession with revenge against Kenobi burned bright. It was this singular focus that kept him alive when lesser beings would have succumbed to despair. And it was this obsession that would eventually lead to his salvation. Unbeknownst to Maul, his mother, the witch Talzin, had sensed his survival. During the Clone Wars, she sent his brother, Savage, to find him. When Savage discovered Maul, the once proud Sith Lord was a shell of his former self, barely able to recall his own identity. All that remained was his unquenchable thirst for vengeance. Talzin used her dark magics to restore Maul's mind and gifted him with cybernetic legs. Thus reborn, Maul's first act was to seek out Kenobi. Maul slaughtered innocents on Redonia to draw out his nemesis, reveling in the carnage and fear he sowed. When Kenobi arrived, Maul savored the Jedi's shock at his return. He captured Kenobi, intending to draw out his suffering. During their confrontation, Maul taunted Kenobi with the memory of Qui-Gon Jinn's death, relishing the pain it caused. But the Jedi escaped with the aid of that Dathomirian pretender, Asay Ventress, leaving Maul's lust for revenge unsated. This encounter only fueled Maul's ambitions further. With Savage at his side, Maul embarked on a reign of terror across the galaxy. He asserted his dominance over his brother, claiming the mantle of Master and promising to complete Savage's Sith training. Together, they would build a criminal empire that would rival the ancient Sith lords of old. Their first steps into the galactic underworld brought them into conflict with the Black Sun, a powerful crime syndicate with tendrils reaching across the galaxy. Maul, ever the strategist, saw an opportunity to seize control of their vast resources. He and Savage stormed the Black Sun fortress on Mustafar, slaughtering their way to the council chamber. There, Maul offered the crime lords a choice: join him or perish. When they refused, he and Savage cut them down without mercy, leaving only one alive to spread word of their new power rising in the criminal underworld. It was a bold move, one that sent shockwaves through the galaxy's shadowy corners. With the Black Sun's resources at his disposal, Maul turned his attention to the Psych Syndicate, masters of the spice trade. Rather than confront them directly, he offered them an allegiance, promising greater profits and protection from rival gangs. The Psychs, ever pragmatic, accepted Maul's offer, further expanding his influence. As Maul's power grew, he inevitably drew the attention of the Hutt cartel. The Hutts, bloated with wealth and complacency, initially dismissed Maul as an upstart. But when he began encroaching on their territories and disrupting their operations, they were forced to take notice. Maul arranged a meeting with Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine, ostensibly to negotiate a truce. But it was merely a ploy to demonstrate his power. As Jabba's guards moved to seize him, Maul and Savage cut them down with ease. Standing over the cowering Hutt, Maul offered him the same choice he had given the Black Sun: join or die. Now, Maul had the Hutt's vast wealth and influence added to his own. Maul's criminal empire now spanned much of the Outer Rim. He named this new organization the Shadow Collective, a force to rival even the Separatists and the Republic. But Maul's ambitions extended beyond mere criminal enterprises. He saw the Shadow Collective as a means to an end, a tool to achieve true power and his ultimate vengeance against the Jedi, and his former master, Darth Sidious. His next move was as audacious as it was brilliant. Maul aligned himself with the Mandalorian splinter group known as the Death Watch, led by Pre Vizsla. Together, they plotted to overthrow the pacifist government of Mandalore a neutral world of great strategic importance. Maul's plan was cunning. He used his criminal allies to sow chaos on Mandalore, staging attacks that the planet's security forces were unable to repel. Then, Death Watch would swoop in as the saviors, deposing the weak government and installing themselves as the planet's new rulers. The plan worked perfectly, and Mandalore fell into Maul's grasp. But he had anticipated pre-Vizsla's inevitable betrayal. When Vizsla attempted to imprison Maul and Savage, the Sith Lord challenged him to single combat, as per Mandalorian tradition. But Maul emerged victorious, beheading Vizsla with the dark saber. Killed by his own weapon. With this act, Maul claimed leadership of Death Watch and control of Mandalore itself. He now had a planet, an army, and a vast criminal network at his command. But Maul's victory was not complete. A faction of Death Watch, led by Bo-Katan, refused to follow a non-Mandalorian ruler. Civil war erupted on Mandalore, even as Maul consolidated his power. It was then that Maul laid a trap for his old enemy, Kenobi. He captured Duchess Satine, Mandalore's former ruler and Kenobi's lost love. As he had anticipated, the Jedi came rushing to her rescue, walking right into Maul's grasp. Oh, how Maul savored that moment. He forced Kenobi to watch as he drove the dark saber through Satine's heart, relishing the Jedi's anguish. First, Qui-Gon. Now, Satine. Maul had taken everything from Kenobi, just as Kenobi had once taken everything from him. But even as Maul reveled in his triumph, a greater threat loomed. His former master, Darth Sidious, had sensed Maul's growing power and saw him as a rival to be eliminated. Sidious himself came to Mandalore to confront his old apprentice. The battle that ensued was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in millennia. Sidious, revealing his true power, faced off against both Maul and his brother Savage. The two brothers fought with all their fury, but they were no match for the master of the Sith. Sidious toyed with them, demonstrating the vast gulf between their powers. In a moment of cruel efficiency, with both sabers in hand, he struck down Savage, forcing Maul to watch as his brother died in his arms. It was then that Maul truly understood the depth of his folly in challenging Sidious. Enraged and desperate, Maul lashed out at his former master. But Sidious easily disarmed him, subjecting the fallen Sith to torturous Force lightning, as Maul begged for mercy. Sidious uttered those chilling words. "There is no mercy." But death would have been too kind a fate for Maul. Instead, Sidious imprisoned him in the Spire, a dreaded detention center where Maul would face unspeakable torments. Sidious had plans for his former apprentice, though what dark designs he had in mind, none could say. From the depths of madness, Maul had risen to command a vast criminal empire and even rule a planet. He had achieved his vengeance against Kenobi, only to be utterly defeated by the true Lord of the Sith. This was not the end for Maul, for fate had other plans for him. Let Maul's story be a lesson to you. Power gained through hatred and vengeance is fleeting. True mastery of the dark side requires patience, cunning, and the wisdom to know when to strike and when to wait in the shadows. Maul's rage made him strong, but it also blinded him to the greater game being played. Remember, in the end, There can only be two Sith, a master and an apprentice. Maul forgot his place in that order and paid the price for his ambition. Meditate on these truths and grow stronger in the ways of the dark side.
Go.